Broncos and the Seahawks will battle it out in the Super Bowl tomorrow. But law enforcement is fighting a different kind of battle right now, trying to secure MetLife Stadium for the expected 80,000 plus people. And this is not an easy stadium to protect. Located a few miles from Manhattan, one of the busiest commuter zones in the country, not to mention it's surrounded by water. So what's being done? With me, former advisor to the UK Ministry of Defense and terror analyst Michael Kay. All right, Michael.
Hello, Judge.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
All right. For the people who are home watching the game on television, what are they not going to be seeing that law enforcement is doing tomorrow?
Well, hopefully they're not going to be seeing pretty much everything. It's going to be like a swan, which is swimming on top of the water very gracefully, but underneath, its feet are going to be paddling away ferociously. As you've already mentioned, this is a one of the most prestigious events on the U.S. sporting calendar. You've already mentioned that the stadium has a capacity at MetLife of 82,500. They're going to be 20,000 workers on top of that. That's 100,000 people within a square mile. That is a brilliant ingredient for a day out and fun-packed event, but also for officials and security organizers, it's an absolute security migraine.
So how do you protect 100,000 people?
Great question. Well, at the moment, it's a level 1 event, and what that means is ever since 9/11, this has been, the Super Bowl has been...
Security, FBI, federal agencies, federal aviation. Right.
Absolutely. So it's got all that, which is great. So that means that it can apportion 400,000 security officials and government officials to the event. 4,000 people
4,000, right.
for 100,000 people within a square mile. That's a lot of security. You've got a no-fly zone that you've already mentioned. We've got a 300-foot...
I hear they're going to send... They've got F-16s ready to enforce that no-fly.
F-16s, F-15s, air-to-air fighters. They've got Black Hawks. They've got Chinooks. I mean, look... It's huge what is going on here, but they've also got this 300-foot Sochi-style ring of steel, which came into enforcement on January the 27th.
Is that literally a ring, I mean a protective ring that they've got around the stadium now?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a metaphor for a ring. It's not a physical ring. What it means is that there are entry and exit points to get into the stadium. I think this is a really important thing that we need to focus on here, is the fact that it is a stadium, and actually it is contained. So it's actually a lot easier than you think to provide security for. I tell you the big thing that I would be slightly worried about is Super Bowl Boulevard. You're going to have 1 million people coming to Super Bowl Boulevard and Times Square throughout the period of the day.
You know,
that's uncontained.
Yes, and you know what's interesting is that NYPD and all these agencies are conferring with Boston PD because of what happened at the Boston bombing, the marathon there.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is an open area. How do you protect that?
Well, it's a lot more difficult, and this is what I would be doing if I was a security official. I wouldn't be looking at what we think is the obvious target. I would be looking at what is the uncontained target. And this is where I think the general public come into play. If you look at Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda and all these terrorist organizations, one of their most effective intelligence ways of gathering data is through their own people that live in their own society. The people who have the mobile phones, the school teacher, that if they see something a little bit odd, they'll pick up the phone and they'll get the message through the network. We now live in a new landscape. We live in a world where there's global terror. We live in a world where there's terrorism, insurgency, and where there's an international jihad on the West, and people want to wreak havoc on the West. So there's going to be 80,000 fans at this event. There are going to be people all over. Keep your eye out. If you see a package or a suspicious package, it's not someone else's problem. It's our problem, and we shouldn't be leaving it to someone else to maybe let an official know or pick up the phone and just alert one of these security officials. All right.
Broncos or Seahawks?
That's a really good question. What I've been doing is I've been doing a bit of Moneyball type analysis on the statistics all day, and that failed miserably. So I'm going to go with my favourite colour, Seahawks.
I'm going with the Broncos.
Brilliant.
So we'll see what happens.
All right. I think you're going to be buying me a beer.
A beer? You got it.
Brilliant.
All right, Michael Kay, thanks for being with us. And coming up, last year the lights went out at Super Bowl. What if the whole country loses power? Our investigation into the danger facing our power grid is next.